focus right now, okay, brother?
Payne said it was an accident, but has been charged with manslaughter.
Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands right now! I'm sorry.
Encounters between the police and criminals don't always end in arrests. When guns are involved, either the police or the criminals end up hurt. The police are instructed to use their weapons for self-defense, but what happens when they fire at victims who are not even trying to hurt them? In today's video, we'll look at 3 unfortunate cases where brainless cops fired at unarmed and wrong suspects. Let's dive right in. Our first case was in Florida. Officer Joshua Payne was on duty in Titusville on December 26, 2021. Police had received a 911 domestic violence call. The suspect had run away, and Payne was tasked with finding the man. Around 7:12 p.m., Officer Payne spotted a man roaming the streets. He called him, but the man started running from him. He suspected that this was the man he was looking for, and chased him.
Time, December 26th, the police say that Officer Josh Payne's body camera shows 40-year-old James Lowry running away from the former officer.
He almost caught up to him when he saw that the man was reaching out in his pockets. He asked him to drop whatever he was pulling out, thinking it was a weapon that could be used against him.
Chases him, orders him to stop, first tries firing his taser at Lowry.
He had his taser out, and at this point, he pulled out his gun too. The man tried to jump over a fence. Officer Payne followed him, but his gun accidentally went off, and the bullet struck the man in the head.
Get down! Hey, he's running, he's running!
Shot fired! Shot fired!
Hey, listen, I need you to focus right now, okay, brother?
Payne said it was an accident, but has been charged with manslaughter.
Police later identified the victim as 40-year-old James Lowry. And the heartbreaking fact was that he was not the suspect Payne was looking for. He was also unarmed.
Video shows a Titusville police officer just moments before he shot and killed a man he thought was a suspect.
But it was actually the wrong guy, and the officer has been arrested.
Said since the start of this investigation that Lowry matched the description of a domestic violence suspect police were looking for that night. Police, though, as you mentioned later, concluding Lowry was in fact not that suspect. But they say Officer Payne did have the lawful authority to try and detain him.
Even though Officer Payne targeted the wrong man, the police department later claimed that he had a right to act based on his fears that Lowry might have something harmful in his pockets that he was trying to pull out. Payne had the right to act in self-defense.
Police also say Officer Payne had a right to fear a threat when Lowry was reaching something on him.
But one question remained. If he wasn't the suspect, why was Lowry fleeing the officer? Well, reportedly, he was carrying illegal substances with him. If he got caught, he could be jailed for many years. He believed the officer was going to arrest him for the narcotics, prompting him to run.
Later, police say this may have been Lowry's motivation to run away because they say they found enough drugs later, including fentanyl, that could have sent Lowry to prison for 25 years. This, though, is when police say Officer Payne made a wrong decision by drawing his gun with his taser still in his other hand, and that's when police say they believe Payne accidentally pulled the trigger and Lowry was shot in the head as he tried jumping a fence.
Titusville Chief John Lau analyzed the body cam footage and gave his 2 cents of the possible reason for this mishap. He claimed that Officer Payne had violated several department general orders to include unnecessary use of deadly force. According to him, when Officer Payne threatened Lowry with a taser and it didn't work, he should have dropped it and tried another technique.
First, during the foot pursuit, Officer Payne deployed his department-issued taser 5 separate times and over 45 seconds in an attempt to stop Mr. Lowry from fleeing. Our training specifically details that if a technique does not give the desired result, then we must change our response to that resistance.
Then, when Lowry was reaching for his pockets, Officer Payne pulled out his gun alongside the taser.
We believe that Officer Payne was alerted to Mr. Lowry first by reaching into his pocket and then by pulling an item out. Officer Payne's voice went up an octave, stating, "Drop it," 3 separate times. Officer Payne then drew his firearm, holding it in his left hand, while still holding and activating his taser with his right hand.
According to Lau, A police officer isn't supposed to have a firearm and taser in his hands together.
Although Officer Payne's decision to draw his firearm based on Mr. Lowry's actions was sound, our training specifically addresses transitioning from one tool to another. At no time do we train our officers to operate both taser and a firearm at the same time.
However, he also acknowledged that both Lowry and Payne were under stress, and he understood that things always didn't go as planned. People made hasty decisions under stress that cost them heavily.
When you are under extreme stress, how do you know what you're going to do if it's never happened before? You can train and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then something happens and your body can do something else.
Lowry's sister, Jauhari Brown, spoke to the reporters and claimed that her brother's life was wrongfully taken, and he hadn't done anything to break the law.
It's taken way too long for what we already knew. He had a big heart, and he would do anything for anyone.
They also claimed that Officer Payne was stalking Lowry and intentionally fired at him, which was later debunked by the police department, stating that Payne was on duty. Officer Joshua Payne was eventually charged with manslaughter. He resigned the day he was indicted and was out on a bond. Payne's pictures or mugshots weren't available anywhere on the news or the internet, which enraged the public. They felt different standards were being maintained for the people of law enforcement, and the system was still trying to protect Payne. But the authorities didn't comment on that. As of 2024, Payne's sentencing was scheduled in April 2024, but was delayed. Lowry's family is hoping that Payne will be sentenced soon, and that their beloved son and brother will get justice. This Milwaukee incident happened in September 2019. Officer Nicholas Zenz was chasing an unarmed suspect who reportedly fled from a traffic stop. The suspect was driving rashly and almost hit a few vehicles on the way. He then crashed into an embankment, fled on foot, and took shelter behind the house of 41-year-old Tari Davis. When Tari came to the back door of his house, Zenz believed him to be the suspect and fired at him. The bullet struck Tari in his stomach. Body cam footage captured the altercation and showed the exact moment Tari became the wrong target. In the video, the suspect could be seen running away from Officer Zenz. He ordered him to stop, but the suspect didn't pay heed.
Kevin Brown, the man officers were pursuing, had fled on foot toward Davis's home.
Davis was standing at his back door where Brown ran to hide. Officer Zenz followed him there. Reportedly, Brown reached for his pocket, and the officer thought he was pulling out a weapon, so he fired at him.
Down! Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands right now!
Davis's daughters and girlfriend can be heard screaming.
His fellow officers arrived at the scene, and it was pure chaos in Davis's backyard. As the other officers asked Zenz who fired at whom, he admitted that it was him, and also explained why he'd opened fire.
He's hit. Shot. Oh, me. That was me. He turned around and went like this. Oh, Jesus.
The video ended here. The footage wasn't released by the Milwaukee Police Department or Davis's attorney, but by Davis himself, who demanded justice for his losses. When reporters contacted him, he recounted the tales of that unfortunate night. He said he was watching a movie when he heard the commotion and went to his backyard to check what happened. And he ended up being the victim.
I come downstairs to close the back door, and as I'm coming toward the door pushes toward me, and I see the person. I look up and I see fire.
The man Officer Zenz was chasing was right there. He went to hide at the back door of Davis's house and evaded the bullet by inches.
Court documents state an officer thought Brown was reaching for a weapon. When the officer fired his gun, Davis was shot in the stomach by mistake.
Davis expressed his frustration and said that the police department wasn't being transparent with the information and was holding back. He filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the officer, and that's how got access to the body cam footage. However, 2 years had passed after the incident, and no concrete action was taken. So, Davis posted the video on his website, demanding justice. After the incident that night, Davis was rushed to the hospital, where he received further bad treatment. According to him, he was shackled to his bed for hours before he was let go. Police also detained his entire family and searched his house, as if he was the suspect and Brown's accomplice.
Like a suspect. I was handled like a suspect. Everything they did, from shackling me to the bed, to detaining my children, detaining my family, searching my house, I was treated as a suspect.
The Milwaukee Police Department didn't comment on the incident. They discharged Zenz and arrested Brown, the original suspect. Davis and his family are now waiting for the officer to receive proper punishment, because Davis believes that this will set an example for all the other officers. He also claimed that many people, especially the African American community, prefer to run away than stay and cooperate with the police because they're treated poorly. Often, the police administer unwarranted force on them, which can claim their lives. He also claimed that a person shouldn't have to be afraid to go to their back door. He was within the perimeters of his house and wasn't hurting anyone. It was Officer Zenz who failed to ensure his safety. According to an update in 2022, Milwaukee authorities decided to create a settlement agreement between themselves and Davis and offer him $450,000. They also terminated Zenz for not adhering to the rules.
According to this Fire and Police Commission decision, Chief Alfonso Morales said Zenz, quote, failed to meet deadly force requirement of target isolation, which means, quote, you can shoot at your target without danger of harming innocent people. Commissioners approved a 20-day unpaid suspension and discharge from the department.
Zenz apologized for his mistakes during his disciplinary hearing in 2020 and asked for another chance.
Cannot express enough my apologies to Mr. Davis. I hope he can forgive me. This city deserves the best officers and ones that genuinely want to help. Please let me help again.
His pleas were rejected, and he was removed from the department. However, as of 2024, Zenz has reportedly joined the police department in Ohio. We can only hope he does not repeat his mistakes there. Our third and final case today occurred in Tulsa in April 2015. Convicted felon Eric Harris was running away from an undercover narcotics and guns operation at around 10 in the morning and resisted arrest. Police caught up to him, but instead of tasing, ended up firing a bullet at him. 73-year-old reserve deputy Robert Bates was the one who pulled the trigger and claimed Eric's life. Body cam footage from the Tulsa Police Department showed the unfortunate event. As this video was taken during a sting operation, a dash cam showed a second angle of the incident. This camera was set up inside the car Eric initially sat in.
It's a Luger. It's a Luger. German Luger.
Eric was trying to sell a gun to an undercover cop, but soon, other officers pulled up, and when Eric noticed them, he jumped out of the car and ran away. This is where Officer Bates came into the scene. He saw Eric running past his car and caught up to him. He pushed him to the ground.
To an undercover officer, but when police vehicles pulled up, Harris ran.
Officer Bates then asked Eric to roll on his stomach so that he could tase him and put handcuffs on him. It was required so that he couldn't resist arrest, but the booming noise from the gun told him he had pulled the wrong one.
Roll on your stomach now.
The officer was then heard saying that was regretful for firing at Eric.
It's made a mistake.
Sorry.
Eric lay there as officers examined his wound. He was shouting, his voice fearful. He also told officers he could not breathe. The officers were putting handcuffs on him at this point, and they didn't pay heed to him. They acted like he deserved it because he was running. The video footage ended there. Reportedly, Eric was treated by firefighters at the scene, and when they couldn't help him, they rushed him to the hospital where he passed away from his injuries. Tulsa police released a statement after the news went public. According to them, the incident wasn't intentional and couldn't be counted as a criminal offense because Bates was a victim of slips and capture. In this phenomenon, an officer intends to do one thing, but ends up doing something else when under stress or pressure.
Reserve Deputy Bates did not commit a crime. Reserve Deputy Bates was a victim, a true victim of slips and capture.
But reports said Bates was not even a trained officer. He was an insurance executive by the day and worked as a reserve deputy in his free time. Eric's family appointed an attorney who also released a statement stating that the way Eric was treated after being fired at was inhuman. He believed Eric's life could have been saved if the police had been a little more considerate toward him.
For the Harris family said, perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all of this is the inhumane and malicious treatment of Eric after he was shot.
Tulsa police put Officer Bates on administrative leave after the incident and didn't press charges on him. However, the sheriff's office requested the FBI to conduct an independent investigation for possible breach of civil rights. However, he was charged with manslaughter later on, and his hearing took place in 2015. After the jury deliberated over 3 hours, Bates was sentenced to 4 years in prison. This definitely came as a victory for the Harris family, and they rejoiced after the hearing. They wouldn't be able to get Eric back, but they hoped the verdict would serve justice.
We put the criminal behind bars.
After a year of heartache, the Harris family declared victory.
This victory for my family. I can rest. I can have some peace.
But Bates didn't complete his sentence. He was out of prison in October 2017 after serving just over 2 years of the 4. He was to serve the rest of his probation sentence. Eric's family released a statement saying they hoped the civil rights lawsuit they filed against Bates would now be brought to attention. So, what did you think of this case? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.